to New York and Philadelphia, I also later did all the research where the jazz concerts were in New York and the jazz clubs at the time. Birdland was still on Broadway and 52nd Street, and I insisted that my mother take me to Birdland. So she was, well, Birdland was not exactly what her interests were in broadening my cultural experiences. But I remember in going to Birdland and being standing in front of Birdland, there was Dizzy Gillespie, who was, the jazz musician who was playing there at the time. It just so happened that he and a couple of his band members were hanging out in front of Birdland, and we walked up. The reason for that was that there was a bar next door to Birdland where the musicians would go between sets to either hang out or have drinks, which were cheaper than being in the actual Birdland club. So I remember that Dizzy greeted us, and I was a teenager, but my mom was not, and she was pretty sharp and very beautiful, and he talked to her, and she was being her proper school teacher self, and he was being his bebop cool cat self, and I remember her asking him where he was from, and he said Cheraw, North Carolina, and I have always remembered that. And every time I would read a bio of Diz, they would always mention he grew up in Cheraw. And it took me right back to that moment, standing on Broadway, where he told my mom that. And of course, we couldn't go into the club because I was about 16 at the time. Even though he invited us in, I think my mom said something like, "Oh, no, we are not going." And that was one of those New York travel experiences, Mom, that I'll never forget.
Pantomime quiz time! Yes, friends, it's Mike Stone.
I remember going to also a quiz show with my mom, and that was one of the things that she really loved to do. This is back in the 50s, and in the 50s where, there were a number of television quiz shows. All I remember is that they were always giving away washing machines. She always wanted to have one of those fancy washing machines. What remains among the most significant memories of my experiences with my mom, Josephine Olivia Brown Dutton, focuses on our going on trips with her from my early childhood through my teen years. Everything was about celebration in the home, family picnics, or celebration of whatever types. I remember watching her prepare food, and that food was such an integral part of our family experience. I think the tradition was that because of segregation, Black folks didn't go out to eat a lot. There was no stopping to eat in restaurants or diners because Black people were not allowed by law to dine in those places. I certainly was the apprentice in the kitchen, especially as we prepared for picnics. And we had a lot of picnics, particularly in Nashville and in Hampton, because it was all a part of the social structure in the Black community. The church had a picnic, the schools had a picnic, the block had a picnic, everybody had a picnic. So now I'm thinking about it, I realized that was a way of providing family entertainment when we could not attend amusement parks or other types of public entertainment. One of my earliest recollections of traveling with her is what I'm calling our family. Green Book. The Green Book was, of course, the Black Accommodations and Travel Reference Book that was used by Black travelers during the 30s, 40s, 50s. Black travelers could find their accommodations anywhere below the Mason-Dixon line, and for that matter, points north as well. Daddy was always the one and only designated driver and guide because my mom, never learned to drive throughout her entire lifetime. Daddy was the driver, so he mapped out the route. Mom was the one who planned and coordinated the meals and the wardrobes that we took on these trips. I remember that there were very detailed preparations that she made, and so being the oldest and being the daughter, I was her assistant. I was always there to help her with the preparations. My job was to be in that kitchen and to help prepare for whatever meals we were going to have on the road, so that there was always an abundance of food on these trips. And that included sandwiches, fried chicken, some kind of vegetables, deviled eggs, potato salad, and a cooler filled with knee-high sodas. I remember that was the name of the soda that we used to drink down south, knee-high, orange and grape sodas.